So I'm sharing my screen, and what I'll do is display the most interesting slide we always have, the antitrust policy notice. The full antitrust policy can be found on the Linux Foundation website. And if you're from a member company, of course, you can ask questions of our counsel, Andy Updegrove. The agenda today is a recap of the big North America Europe call, where we had some significant discussion. That was last week. And then we're going to have an update on the governing board strategy subcommittee meeting, which I think was yesterday, though jet lag prevents me being completely sure. And then Anna is going to tell us what to do is doing, which is really cool because obviously as a sister project, we want to stay in sync. Now, the recap of the call will have 5 parts, and oh, yes, someone's enabled uh, transcription. The recap of the last call will have 5 parts. I'll go through it really quickly. As usual, our slides will be available on our GitHub. And of course, the recording of this call will be distributed on YouTube. And I'll also be handing it off to our community in China so they can publish it locally. First point, we have a freeze period underway on our existing ISO standards and proposed updates. So basically, we spent 2 years thinking about what could be improved with the 2 ISO standards we built, one for license compliance, one for security assurance. The freeze period is the final stage in the community development before we hand it over to the steering committee and they formally decide, do they want to action the updates and when. So we went through the 2 years of editing, 6 months public comment period, and now the 3 month freeze period's about to end. And that's a significant milestone. It means the main community work is done. We've had plenty of time for extra comments, and everyone in the community is happy that the proposed updates are what they want to see. What's going to happen next is you'll see red line documents of what will be submitted to the steering committee for their formal review. And they'll do their vote and so on in June. But before that, you'll get feedback and updates on what's going on. Now, the thing I wanted to talk about, and I'll do that later, is on our North America and Europe call, we flagged that the board was getting together strategy subcommittee. They met on the 17th, which is about 30 something hours ago. And they were discussing the topic of future standards and what ifs. For instance, the AI Bill of Material Compliance Guide we're just about to release. What if people love that? And they said, this should be more than a guide. Let's make a standard. Or the Telco SBOM Quality Guide. We're looking at a cross-industry version, format agnostic. If people really like that, should we turn it into a spec? Now, on the North America Europe call, we had a question of were there additional topics that people wanted to raise? And we folded conversation into the mix as best we could. You'll see that a little later in this call. Next thing I wanted to touch on was that we have released as CC0, effectively public domain, capability and maturity modeling for ISO 5230. In other words, if a company is doing license compliance, adopting our ISO standard for that, how do they judge improvements? How do they level up what they're doing? And that maturity model came out a while back. It came out in January officially, and it's been getting some really good responses. So we have 2 things likely happening in the near future. One is expanding the maturity modeling availability to also cover our security standard. The second is collaborating with Chaos around metrics. So if a company is engaging with open source and open source projects as part of their maturity levels, they might want to consider the health of the projects that they depend on. So we've just opened dialogue with Daniel over at Chaos about how we could work together. Pretty exciting. Another exciting thing is we have a huge meeting in Germany coming soon. So we're going to have a big meeting in Stuttgart from the 7th to 9th of April. And that meeting will cover a lot of things for smaller and medium-sized businesses dealing with open source management. How do we address open source? How do we do things like automate? Also, how do we do things like license compliance or security to meet legal requirements and regulatory requirements? For small companies, that can be overwhelming. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that in collaboration with a local group called the Fossland Community. Essentially, we're working with local government and local companies, spearheaded by Bosch, and lots of friends turning up from automotive and elsewhere to try to give a great summary of real options, but real examples of how to implement them for organizations of any size, giving the ability for the smallest company to automate and scale with the same type of potential that large companies do. And of course, we have tons of open source tooling for open source automation, whether it's license compliance or something else. On the bottom of this image, you will see kind of a capability map. And because I can mess with my slides, I'll pull it up like this. We've had a capability map talking about open source tooling for a long time. The primary optic was license compliance, and the idea was to look at toolchain capabilities. And this map is designed so that we can take an individual tool or automation solution. The example right here is clearly defined and show what it covers. That has the advantage of allowing people to quickly look at things like Open Source Review Toolkit, Fossology, FOSSLite, clearly defined, and so on, and see what they cover. I'm also encouraging proprietary vendors to have a look at putting their tools into our mapping so that, regardless of whether people are going to use open source tooling for open source automation questions or proprietary tooling, they can see what the capabilities are. As I said, this capability map is focused on license compliance, but we're also spinning up a security variant, and we'll spin up more as needed in future. Terribly exciting stuff. Then we had a little talk about future standards, see what people's thoughts are on that. The main thing was on the call for North America, Europe to get opinions. Did people think OpenChain should have more standards in the future or not? And that brings us to the second agenda item, which was to feed into the board strategy meeting. And basically, we talked about exactly this. We have two standards for open source compliance process management. One is license compliance, the other is security assurance. Should we explore more? The fact that we're about to release an AI Bill of Material Compliance Guide, and we already released a telco SBOM quality guide that's being used by companies like Nokia and Ericsson, and we may release a cross-industry SBOM quality guide, we are probably going to have to talk about this more. And you see our security standard, what became ISO, IEC 18974, actually started as a guide. People liked it a lot and suggested that that was suitable for becoming a standard. So we need to think about the forthcoming guides and whether we want to be prepared to turn them into standards or not. So the strategy subcommittee spent 3 hours talking about this, in between drinking coffee and making jokes and doing our usual stuff. And the outcome is they will recommend to the board considering guidance on when a guide is enough, it solves the identified challenge, and when it's appropriate to consider turning a guide into a specification. In other words, to build on our existing guidance around how do we set up work groups, how do we set up new standards, et cetera, and add another bit of guidance about when a guide is enough, when a standard is appropriate to consider, and steps to support that thinking process. So that'll feed into a couple of. Okay, that's enough for me. It's time to hear what the two group is doing. And I notice we have people from various places around the world on the call. I just wanted to say hi to Imamura-san from the IPA, who's been doing a ton of stuff on open source recently, and I'm super glad to have her on the call because she just held the first event, new team, and has been great about working with us, and will be great working with all the other projects. Right. Anna, I'm guessing I should stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
Yes.
There
Okay,
we
thank
go.
you. Sorry, now my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
It looks great.
Awesome. Yes, so thank you so much for inviting me, Zane, and thanks everyone for listening to my talk. So I will be giving a few of the updates that the community has been putting together, especially this year, and some of the resources that are coming in. I think either they publish like this week or they're on the way to be published too. So for those unfamiliar with Todo, I'm gonna be really quick because I think most of you know about the community or are active contributors to the community. So we are a group of organizations and practitioners that wants to create collective knowledge on open source management methodologies and elevate the value of OSPOs within organizations. So we do that in the shape of best practices because no OSPOs are the same. We cannot build a standard on OSPOs or open source management best practices. So that's why we have these best practices in place and have all the community to share their use cases or the stories for others to use and reuse and adapt. So our community has been growing a lot in the past year, and I'm really excited that I see more local communities thriving and creating their resources to nurture this community. This comes from our report from last year. So we are seeing local communities in Latin American countries, Mexico and Colombia specifically, in China mainland, in Japan, and in Europe, we have a few of countries having either ospology live meetings or having OSPO gatherings in Finland, in Sweden, Netherlands, and Germany mainly. And yeah, we are, even though in this community started in 2012 or 2014. Yeah, last year we turned 10 years. It was the 10th anniversary of Todo. And even though it was most from people from North America, we are seeing a huge, a big increase in European organizations, Asia and Latin America, especially in the last 3 years. And we couldn't do this if our general members and associates weren't there. Organizations having open source management or a similar OSPO setup in place, or communities such as OpenChain that is right here, even though it's really difficult to see, that collaborates with Todo on helping build OSPO best practices and helping in open source management tooling and helping OSPOs on the standards and security standards too. We also have to give a big shout out to our Todo ambassadors. This was something that started 2 years ago, and it's a way for individuals that are active contributors to Todo or wants to build their local meetups in their regions and spread the awareness on building OSPOs and building open source management within organizational setups. So we have a few folks from China, Japan, also from US, Finland, and more. So thank you so much. If you're interested to learn more about these ambassadors, you can go to our page. And also big thanks to our steering committee members that help us keep build processes and have standard guidelines for the community to do the work and to thrive. So thank you so much. I think two of them are right now in 11 member summit, and there will be a Ask Me Anything session. I think maybe it was tomorrow, so today, but in the morning. uh, and you can ask anything about Sudo if in case there's people there. Um, so one of the things that we have been working on, and I think was more than 25 subject matter expert has been putting great efforts on building this, is certification. And this is the first to do certification, and we are really excited. This has been launched during LF Member Summit. This is for Open Developer for Enterprises. Uh, and is a certification in collaboration with the Linux Foundation Education and also the Open Source Initiative. So right now you can enroll, or if your organization is interested to learn more, you can enroll. And I think it's the exam will take place in April. So you have here all the details in the website in case you want to learn more. Um, the other exciting things is that we are trying to put together another year the open source management and OSPO survey. So last year we got really interesting insights. So this is something nothing new, right? Like OSPOs are cross skilling, and they are going through different verticals. So we are seeing OSPOs in automotive, we are seeing OSPOs in finance, but not only that, we are seeing also across different skills, right? So for instance, these two insights that we take from the 2024, like 91% of OSPOs involved in managing security issues, becoming more friends with security teams, or even around innovation in current, in state-of-the-art technologies, such as generative AI and generative AI models. So we found that 84% of OSPOs are involved in developing or managing generative AI infrastructure. And all this is done through open source engagement. That is one of the big pillars that OSPOs have. So OSPOs are able to do that by engaging with open source ecosystems and with open source projects. And we found that 80% of organizations reported that OSPOs have meaningful impact on their ability to work with open source communities. So that is like a success story for OSPOs. Organizations aiming to get more involved in open source communities. They're seeing that with the OSPO, with having an OSPO, if there is virtual or physical, they have this more easily. They success on this easily. If you're interested to learn more about the 2025 and how you can help, you can go here to this last link. I will share these slides at the end of my talk because I forgot. The next topic is Ospology Lives and Ospology Birds of a Feather. So Ospology Lives has been running over the past 2 years in different, especially in Europe. So we have been doing in different countries. This is we ask for someone, an OSPO, an organization that is involved in OSPOs to become the host and provide the venue in one of the countries in Europe. So the next one is going to be in Amsterdam. The last year we also had one in Amsterdam, and the previous year we also have one in Amsterdam. This is hosted by the Dutch Employee Insurance Agency, and Ospology is a brand that we don't want that this to be just a to-do thing. So that's why all the co-organizers are beyond to-do. So we have, of course, OpenChain, and even there's gonna be a getting started workshop on one of the OpenChain tooling working group, and other working groups too. This is gonna be more focused on governments and policy making, but every ospology it has a different flavor depending on the host and depending on the kind of outcomes that the community wants to put together. The next ospology, even though it's not announced yet, is going to be in Lyon in France and will be more focused on the energy sector and hosted by RTE. That will be probably around November. And once we have more details, I will let you know. Yeah, and this is in case you want to scan to the to where the landing page is and some of our featured speakers that will be yeah, participating in this Ospology Live. And other thing, we also have these Ospology buffs. So as I mentioned, Ospology is a framework. This is not just about Todo. It's for any conference organizers that wants to use that framework for the for their own events to reuse. And we have templates and we have examples and other materials that are here available. So we have been doing this in many cloud native events, like CNCF events. We did the last one was in India in 2024, and we are building out a report that we are sharing also in this repo. And the next one will be in London. And also, we have confirmation that there will be an OSPO Birds of a Feather for KubeCon China and KubeCon Japan in June. And once it's published, I will let you know. And well, this is something that Saint already mentioned, but Todo is also helping out in the OpenChains and Friends event in the Stuttgart, and there will be some presentations on Todo around community and processes. But I'm gonna skip it because Saint nicely presented really well previously. And finally, some of our working groups updates. We have currently two active working groups. One is one of the OSPO book, and the other I will say you shortly. So in the OSPO book, here it is. So we have a website, and this has been running for 2 years now. And right now, it's basically moving this website into a physical format and PDF format. And Alice and Fernando and Jen, I think also, they are working on reviewing and building a style standard. And probably that style standard that they are working for the OSPO book will become a style standard for all Todo materials, but that is something that still is work in progress. And if you would like to help, I didn't add it. So if you would like to help in the Todo Slack channel, there is a specific channel for the OSPO book. Alice and Fernando are meeting every week to work, and there is in the Ospology repo, you can find different tasks where they are giving input and updates on that. And the other working group that we are starting, we're still finding community managers and working group leaders to help like facilitate work, is the open source in business guide. And so far the community created an outline that has these 4 areas. And in a in order to help facilitate work, these areas has been put it into milestones. So if you go to the Ospology repo, you will see that we have been putting into milestones and created a Kanban board for to organize work and divide it into different tasks. So for instance, if you would like to get started, right now there are some activity in one of them, that is this one. And people are just adding their experiences, because this working group of open sourcing business guide is a way to share to management the value of open source in a business context. And the best way to do that is also share stories from the community on how what it worked and what it didn't in the organization. So if you would like to help and check it out, and you don't know where to start, this issue can be a nice place to start adding work. Um, and the other thing that we are missing out and we are asking for helping hands is with group coordination. So we are looking for volunteers that has prior experience with GitHub, be able to schedule and attend 2 or 3 touchpoints calls that are our community calls in To-Do, and have the ability to organize group focus calls if they need it. Although most of this happens on GitHub, I know like sometimes they need some sync calls to advance in work, and that is what we're into right now. And if you would like to to connect with the community on the open source in business guide, there is a working group in To-Do. Here's the workspace, and here's the discussion that started everything. And finally, our touch points. I already mentioned these community calls. So we just started with the 2025 edition. This year we are giving a different approach. So we usually only have like open forums in these touchpoints last year. This year what we are doing is starting with a 15 minutes presentation from people from the community on different topics, so business, strategy, compliance. And from there, we have some working group updates from our chairs. And finally, we have open forum discussions that can be related with the initial presentation that the speaker talked about, or can be a different topic. And this open forum that we usually is like 30 minutes of the touch points is under Chatham House rules, and I want to have really emphasis on that because I think it's really important that sometimes you feel insecure about asking something or saying things that maybe cannot be said. So with the Chatham House rules, participants are free to use the information they receive, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers. So this way creates a safe and secure space for the community jumping into these calls to talk about their problems or their challenges, and don't be like pointed like, oh yes, this person said that. So because it's always on the Chatham House rules. And even though these meetings, the first part are being recorded, we don't record the Chatham House, the open forum section. Okay, I think that was all. And now I would like to ask for Q&A for you if there are any questions. I will stop sharing my screen. And again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak and for inviting me. And I will
Well,
share the screens, the slide.
no, I'm really, really glad you came here. And I have one question to open, which is about the certification, which sounds, fantastic. I wanted to check. You mentioned that there's an exam a few months away. Does that mean that the certification course is sort of a rolling course that people do it over several weeks? How does that work? What is it like?
Yeah, I honestly need to ask again to the LF education team, but I think it's so you okay, and because I see I think I saw it in the website. 12 months. Yeah, so you have you take this exam and you have 12 months to do the exam. So that's the thing. But it will
Oh.
open on April, in April. So that's, yeah. And I think this works for every LF education certification. Like it's a standard they have.
Hmm. Yeah, because we were thinking about doing something like that around what we have, because we have 2 training courses, but we don't have a certification to say, yes, this person
Mm.
is certified for knowing how to work on this. And It was so cool to see what To Do Group did on bringing this out. Was it really, really hard? Which is the second question.
Yeah, so it took more than, so we were planning to have it in 2024 and we're releasing it now, right? So it took more time because you need to gather subject matter experts to start working on the outline and then on the questions, and then there are beta testers that are different things. So there are a lot of process. I learned a lot actually, but it's true that if you expect to have this in 1 year period, then it's gonna be 1 year and a half, right? So usually it takes more time. Actually, I wanted to share briefly my screen because this is the landing page, and yeah, so here you have more details. And oh, and also, one of the things that is interesting for the certifications, and they will probably ask you if you want to do a certification in OpenChain, are related trainings that is like, okay, if I'm not ready yet, how what should I take, like what training courses are recommended. And actually we I know like we added some of the open chain licensing courses. If you have more that you think that can fit with this content, let us know, because this is something that is interesting. Like, oh, I want to take this course, but I don't know if I'm ready. You can take these training courses. So if you have on other topics in mind, these are the competencies and domains. Feel free to add to share it with me, so I can ping the LF education so they can add more training courses here to help people that they don't feel ready to take the exam to
That was
first do
great.
the
And we,
training.
we do have one more course that might be useful there. Yari pointed it out, LFC 193. It's the precursor to the one about implementation that you have. It's an
Oh,
intro
okay,
course. So I'll
perfect.
send you the link to that. And I was just thinking it'd be cool. And that linking is exactly the thing I was thinking. I mean, obviously, we probably want to start talking about this to-do group training course on our website. And then gradually, if we produce stuff, we'll want to point back and forth. And I'm guessing LF training, they've always been wonderful to work with, so they can help us pull it all
Yeah, I
together.
mean, it's basically they have their process and the pipeline and their roadmap, and we just follow.
That's the advantage of Linux Foundation. So I don't want to monopolize question time. Does anyone else have a question for Anna?
You can also write them in the chat, and I will keep an eye.
Anna, hey, hold on, like, where's my camera? So it feels a bit better to talk. Do. So, the OSPO book, like, cause I was trying to participate a little bit, but then lack of time, etc., etc. Where are we now with that? Because you mentioned that there's going to be some template and PDF format, etc., etc. But how ready it is today?
Yeah, so right now what they are doing is working on this style guide. So they're gonna like apply all that style to the whole content of the website book. And in parallel, I'm working with LF Design, the team, to build this like PDF draft design. And then once the draft design is finished, I will share with the reviewers that are basically Alice and Fernando, or anyone that wants to be involved. Like, you can be also
Yep.
involved to do a review on that design. Uh, Actually, all this conversation is public. It's are in the issues. So is this issue. So that exact issue that I'm sharing is where most of the work is happening. Um, there's also this Slack channel that is called Project OSPO, dash OSPO Book, where you can ping, because the leaders that are taking this is Alice and Fernando mainly.
Yeah, Alice I know. Fernando I don't know that well.
But yeah, it's that's the thing. It's more about reviewing the style, keeping consistency in the whole like chapters,
Yep.
and then having this PDF version.
So, but basically I don't know, 99% of the content is there. It's not. It's like, let's say, fine tuning what's
So
going to be.
I think it is more regarding the styles. If you think
Yeah.
that there is content that can be changed, feel free to do a review. We still have a few time because I'm waiting for them to do the whole style like mapping before sharing to the LF design and telling them to create the draft design.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Gracias.
I have a question related to, I guess, non-native speakers participating in To-Do Group. And for example, we have terrific multilingualism in the Japan work group, but we do have work groups where essentially we have a few ambassadors, and then the vast majority are not people who communicate in English. China work group's an example. We have about 334 people, and perhaps 20 tend to communicate in English, and most people will read a little bit but won't actively contribute. From what I understand in To-Do Group, because you do an awful lot on GitHub, it's totally fine for people to focus on contributing there and putting comments, even if they don't feel that they can be on the calls. Is that correct?
Yes, and also through our local ambassadors. That, for instance, the to do an OpenChain working OSPO, how is it called? OSPO local meetup
Meetup. Yeah.
team, led by folks from the OpenChain Japan working group. They do the meetings in Japanese and they build the resources in Japanese. And then there is a nice thing that is they have these quarterly reports shared in English. So there is one ambassador that is the person that takes that content that is in one language and the community put together in their language and give a sort of summary for the wider community to understand in English in the GitHub discussions. And there, even when there is like, I know like they build the OSPO frequently asked questions in Japanese, so they translate it into English. And the same for the China community as well. So they give a report. I think was in December on all the events they did, all the conversations. So everything was in Chinese, and they just translated. And I think that is a nice thing. Like don't stop people to speak in the language is their mother tongue language, but then make sure that there is some like it can be an ambassador or it can be a different role or a different figure, but someone that from that community is able to be the linchpin between connecting the local community and the wider community. And I think similar scenario could happen in OpenChain. I
That
don't know if
sounds
that was a question.
well, no, it is, and it was sort of one of
Okay.
those loaded questions because I kind of already know the answer, but I want to make sure that people watching the recording feel super confident and clear that yeah, there's tons of ways to get involved. Even if you're reading this with machine translation into your language, don't worry. We have people. We have ways. Right. Uh, by the way, I noticed that your ambassador program is really quite working quite well. You seem to have very active ambassadors. Thomas is here in Napa, and his badge is showing his to-do group ambassadorship. His badge actually, he's involved in so many things. The event team said to him, You have to choose some stuff not to go on your badge. We can't fit this all on your badge." But he's super active, and it's a program which sounds so successful that it's something we should consider replicating, because we have chairs of work groups, but the ambassadorship seems to allow people who aren't a chair to be super involved. Yari says he looks tired. You look tired? It's 2:15 a.m. here.
Well,
Hush now,
well, Shane,
Yari.
you are crazy. Last week you had a call, in from Japan. Was it like 1:30 a.m. and
That's
now
right.
you're in States taking, the same time. It's like you just go to the wrong country to take
The
calls.
wrong continent. Every week I'm on the wrong continent and doing a middle of the night call. It's a talent and a curse. Yeah. And you don't look too tired, or I should say, you always look this tired.
Ah,
Okay, so is there any final question for Anna? Everyone's so shy today. Well, if there's no more questions for Anna, we do have a little bit more stuff to do on this call, and some of it's kind of related to the community. Um, Formally speaking, the next part of this call is any other business. And it's where you can raise it if you have something else you want to speak about it. And if not, I'm going to raise it, because what I wanted to do is give you a tiny preview of the talk I'm giving tomorrow. And I think the full talk will go online soon. The reason I wanted to give you a preview is because this will be a slightly different talk to usual, and it will be designed to help other projects and other projects which are thinking about, should they make standards too? That's a topic which we haven't covered that much, but Joint Development Foundation and OpenChain have started on that. And just for fun, I'm going to keep it lighthearted. We're going to talk about standards that predate the United States by a lot of centuries. And I'm promising this will illustrate everything good and bad about standardization. That's obviously a lie. I won't get even close to covering the topic in detail. But I decided to choose heraldry, which is the art of creating shields, family coat of arms. And the first one we have in modern heraldry is about 900 years old, and it shows a fellow in France with a blue shield and 6 lines. And this got more and more formalized, and by the 15th century, we had heralds who decided what in England was an official coat of arms and what was nonsense. So at that time, because the British were kindly occupying my country, we also used the same rules. This is my family coat of arms from the 16th century. And until 1922, we used their legal structures for small details like making coats of arms and, I suppose, building roads and railways according to their standards too. After that, the UK left. They kept a bit of Northern Ireland as a souvenir, but they mostly left, yet we still use them for coats of arms, blah, blah, blah. However, it would seem like with standardization around something like heraldry, everyone will get a shield. Not totally true. Most people were peasants, they don't get shields. But in theory, everyone gets the same type of shield with the same rules. But there was a huge problem that emerged, which is related to other people in other countries with other jurisdictions and other kings impolitely not using the exact same rules as the English. So in the 17th century, the Swedish got involved in the 30-Year War with mercenaries called the Galloglass, and they used the English heraldry. The Swedish, for irrational reasons, used Swedish heraldry. And that led to a fascinating situation where a coat of arms, which would be using English heraldry, and a coat of arms using Swedish heraldry are using different signifiers and placements and so on and so forth. Functionally, to us, they look identical, but they have their own standards and they don't match, which leads to confusion for Scottish warriors 300, 400 years ago. What do? Their shield is not functional, and if they want to stay in Sweden, they will look weird. So the solution was unclear. It remains unclear 3 centuries later. It seems that in that case, we have two standards and no clear way to resolve the differences between them. But the good news is there were standards in the individual countries, which was at least something. You could go back to Scotland quite grumpy, but when you got there, people would look at your shield and say, that's not ridiculous. Anyway, and then the point of the talk, which I'm not going to go into, it's blah, blah, blah. But the end of the talk is that if people cross certain bridges where there's a problem that can't be solved with guides or technical documents or just leaving everything alone, maybe they'd make standards. And if so, there's various bits of help they can get from projects like OpenChain, SPDX. They can get help from Joint Development Foundation and community support from To-Do. And if they pass all those barriers, they could be productive and helpful and wise, and everyone at parties will want to talk with them. There was also a note, though, that people should not be this person, which is making standards for the sake of making standards. A lot of the work out there where people are bringing stuff together and having great ideas belongs in guides, and it belongs in community books. For instance, we're seeing that OSPO book being produced by the To-Do group, and it belongs in things like training courses. So we're trying to help people understand, you know, when the checklist suggests that maybe they should do a standard. Anyway, I just wanted to flag that. Hopefully the full recording will be out soon. And it's a little bit different to our usual talks, a little bit lighthearted. With that, I think that we will wrap it up. So thank you very much indeed, everyone. I look forward to the next call we'll have together. We probably will have uh, a lot to talk about around outcomes of the member summit, and we'll have a lot to talk about with what the community wants to build next. So, good night, good day, good morning, and see you all soon.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
And Shane, go to sleep now.
Oh God, yes. It's time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.